Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Grumpy Snail Podcast, where the news is made up and the intros are too long. I am your host, Jonathan Snyder, and thank you for joining me as I try to squeeze 2 minutes of information into a 15-minute video. Make sure that you click the like, share, subscribe button, and upload. I upload a video every Sunday at noon, and sometimes randomly did upload an extra podcast this week, so if you missed that one, make sure you go check that one out at the merch store. Link is in the description down below, and now let's get on with the video. Kind of rhymed, didn't it? Last Sunday, we took a look at a scary look. We took a scary look into the world after the Great Reset. And this week, we're going to continue. You may think that the picture that I painted last week is an exaggeration. Well, in 2016, an article was published in Forbes magazine titled, "Welcome to 2030. This is a quote, "Welcome to 2030. I own nothing, have no privacy, and life has never been better." The article was written by a World Economic Forum contributor, and it read as follows. "Welcome to the year 2030. Welcome to my city, or should I say our city." Nothing like communism, right? "I don't own anything. I don't own a car. I don't own a house. I don't own any appliances or any clothes." It might seem odd to you, but it makes perfect sense to us. For the city, everything you consider a product has now become a service. We have access to transportation, accommodation, food, and all the things that we need in our daily lives. One by one, all these things became free, so it ended up not making much sense for us to own much. Right? So that was the article. How ridiculous does that idea sound, right? The author believes, this is 2030, the author believes that within 7 years, the next 7 years, all these items will become free. And you'll be able just to get them. They'll just resources are abundant on this planet, right? But we currently have a lot of homeless people starving in America right now, the richest country in the world, right? The Great Reset backers support altering every part of society, from the cars we drive to the food we eat to the news and news reports that we watch. Its core foundation was shaped almost entirely by a small, extremely wealthy, and well-connected group of people. The goal is to transform the global economy, eliminate free markets, impose a new, more easily controllable and malleable economic system, and change the way people think about private property and corporations. Okay? Private property is very important. One of the ways in which the Great Reset supporters want to design a better world is by engaging in massive wealth redistribution schemes. Ones that would promote economic equity, not only among citizens within individual nations, but also between countries. A lot of progressives would approve of this idea, at first completely forgetting that the lowest of income earners in the U.S., the country that you live in, are part of the 1% globally. So you poor people got to lose your money too. So who are the backers of this Great Reset agenda, right? We talked about it. These supporters include a small group of highly influential business leaders, environmentalists, government officials, and bankers. Okay, the bankers are in on it too. A lot of these people you know or have heard of. Al Gore, for instance, is one of them. On a June 19th episode of NBC's Today television show, Al Gore said, quote, "So I think it's time for a great reset. We've got to fix a lot of these problems that have been allowed to fester for far too long. And the climate crisis is an opportunity to create tens of millions of new jobs, clean up the air, and reduce the death rate from pandemics, by the way, because the air pollution from burning fossil fuels heightens the death rates from coronavirus." Another supporter of this is Shannon Burrow, which may be a name that you do not know. She's the General Secretary of the International Trade Union Confederation. She said, quote, "Design a better world based on solidarity and sharing." Solidarity and sharing, and deciding on how you protect people, both within nations and globally, is absolutely critical at the moment. We need to design policies to align with investment in people and the environment. But above all, the longer-term perspective is about rebalancing economies, end quote. Okay, other backers include Antonio Guterres, who is the UN Secretary General, if I pronounce his name correctly. We've got Gita Gopinath or Geopinath or whatever. I'm about as terrible at names as Glenn Beck is. But this person is the lead economist and the lead economist in the International Monetary Fund. Bernard Looney, of course, who is the CEO of BP, which is kind of odd. Why would the CEO of BP, an oil company, be involved in this? AJ Banga, which is the CEO of MasterCard. Ooh, credit cards are involved. Bradford Smith, who is the president of Microsoft. But also include people such as King Charles and, of course, President Joe Biden. Joe Biden's special climate envoy, John Kerry, we all know John Kerry, spoke at a World Economic Forum event in November 2020, stating that, quote, "Yes, it will happen with greater speed and with greater intensity than a lot of people might imagine," end quote. Now you're asking about the World Economic Forum. Now the World Economic Forum is a large nonprofit based in Switzerland, okay? In early June 2020, they had a virtual meeting, and the purpose was to launch a new campaign for a great reset of the global economy using COVID-19 pandemic and climate change as justifications for their proposed returns to society. Now, I'm not making any of this stuff up. It's all coming from the website. It's all coming from quotes of these people. It's all coming from books. Like these videos and that I'm doing now on this series are completely packed. There's so much information in it that a lot of it doesn't flow very well, but I mean, you gotta, these people are saying these things, so I'm gonna keep on saying what these people are saying. One speaker of the WEF was Jennifer Morgan, who is the executive director of Greenpeace International, and she said, quote, "We need to set up a new world order." New World Order. It's an old quote from George H.W. Bush, sorry. She said, quote, "We need to set up a new world order after World War II. Oh, no, that's not what she said. Ha! I'm lying to you. She said, quote, "We set up a new world order after World War II. And now we're in a different world than we were then. We need to ask, what can we be doing differently? The World Economic Forum has a big responsibility in that as well, to be pushing the reset button and looking at how to create well-being for people and for the earth." Okay? But the biggest name that we're going to talk about is, of course, the executive chairman and co-founder of the World Economic Forum himself, Sir Klaus Schwab. In an article posted to the World Economic Forum website, he wrote, quote, "COVID-19 lockdowns may be gradually easing, but anxiety about the world's social and economic prospects is only intensifying. To achieve a better outcome, the world must act jointly and swiftly to revamp all aspects of our societies and economics, from education to social contracts and working conditions. Every industry, from oil to gas to tech, must be transformed. In short, we need a great reset of capitalism." Klaus Schwab is one of the largest proponents of this agenda. In his book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution, Schwab wrote, "One of the many diverse and fascinating challenges we face today, the most intense and important, is how to understand and shape the new technology revolution, which entails nothing less than the transformation of humankind." Transformation of humankind. We are at the beginning of a revolution that is fundamentally changing the way we live work, and relate to one another. In its scope and complexity, what I consider to be the fourth industrial revolution is unlike anything humankind has ever experienced before. End quote. Now, there's a lot of flowery language there, but how do you take the, quote, transformation of humankind? Kind of reminds me of when Michelle Obama said, "Barack knows that we are going to have to make sacrifices. We are going to have to change our conversation. We're going to have to change our tradition, our history." How do you change your history? And we're going to have to move into a different place as a nation. Schwab goes on to say in his book, quote, "We are witnessing profound shifts across all industries, marked by the emergence of new business models and disruptions of incumbents and the reshaping of production, consumption, transportation, and delivery systems. On the societal front, a paradigm shift is underway in how we work and communicate, as well as how we express, inform, and entertain ourselves. Equally, governments and institutions, as our systems of education, healthcare, as our systems of education, healthcare, and transportation, among many others. New ways of using technology to change behavior and our systems of production and consumption also offer the potential for supporting the regeneration and preservation of natural environments, rather than creating hidden costs in the forms of externalities." Again, lots of flowery language, but also some language that pushes a little bit towards some subtle control. As he continues, the picture will become much more clear. Quote, "The changes are so profound. There has never been a time of greater promise or potential peril. My concern, however, is that decision makers are too often caught in traditional, linear, and non-disruptive thinking, or they're too absorbed by immediate concerns to think strategically about the forces of disruption and innovation shaping our future." Now, if someone wants you to make big changes, and we're going to talk about this later, they would need you to convince you that the problem is also big, as Schwab attempts to do. Schwab would have you believe that the changes are so profound from the perspective of human history that there has been never been a time of great promise or peril. Never been. What about World War II? What about the Cuban Missile Crisis, where the U.S. and the Soviet Union stood on the brink of nuclear war? Kind of like maybe we do now. What about the Black Death in Europe during the 14th century that killed an estimated 75 to 200 million people? That was a lot back then. He goes on to condescend to the brain dead, quote, decision makers, the ones you're electing. Actually, maybe true kind of there. As Schwab wraps up his intro in his book, he goes on to say, quote, "The fundamental and global nature of this revolution means it will affect and be influenced by all countries, economies, sectors, and people. It is therefore critical that we invest attention and energy into multi-stakeholder cooperation across academic, social, political, national, and industry boundaries. These interactions and collaborations are needed to create positive, common, and hope-filled narratives, enabling individuals and groups from all parts of the world to participate in and benefit from the ongoing transformations. This isn't a grassroots revolution from the proletariat, okay? This is a revolution starting in the corporate suites among the bourgeoisie, where transnational business people get together in big meetings in posh places like the extravagant Davos, Switzerland, or more locally places, like Martha's Vineyard. This revolution is the Great Reset. This Great Reset isn't socialism, even though it does include some socialistic government programs. It isn't a free market economics, because elites, governments, and central banks control them. Okay? They even micromanage economic decision-making. The Great Reset is full of corporatism, but it is more than just big bailouts and sweetheart deals between business and corrupt politicians. Okay? Technology is a huge part, but calling it a technocracy fails to capture the full weight of the transformation of economic and societal activity. The Great Reset is a highly fascistic, but not violent. It's not violent. Nationalistic, like, the past ones that they had in Europe. It's not violent or nationalistic. But a modern corporate cronyist techno-socialist international fascism doesn't quite roll off the tongue. So as we go, you'll notice that it has a lot of elements of the Chinese capitalist economic model, where they control everything. This is because the elites in the West have a deep admiration of the Chinese government's ability to make economic changes at breakneck speed. The Great Reset is the Western elite's attempt on improving the China model. In his advice for governments, Schwab tells governments that they must adopt, quote, agile governance, which he defines as, quote, an essential strategy to adopt how policies are generated, deliberated, enacted, and enforced to create better governance outcomes in the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Inspired by Agile Manifesto and a report by the World Economic Forum Global Agenda Council on Future of Software and Society, the concept of agile governance seeks to match the nimbleness, fluidity, and flexibility and adaptiveness of the technologies themselves and the private sector actors adopting them. That means that Schwab wants to act with all the ethics of our largest corporations who have polluted our air and our water, the pharmaceutical companies who clamor for complete financial immunity for all their treatments, medications, and vaccines, and big tech who never seem to suffer for violating values of free speech and free competition. He goes on to encourage collaborations between governments and businesses to create, quote, developmentory sandboxes and, quote, experimental test beds to develop resolutions using interactive, cross-sectional, and flexible approaches as discussed by Jeff Moulon, also promoting the development of ecosystems of private regulators competing in markets to deliver governance in line with overarching social goals, as proposed by Gillian Hatfield and Rules for a Flat World. Again, it's just a complete load of a lot of nonsense. And we're going to continue to discuss the different people involved in this movement. Okay? Next week, I'm going to bring into the equation the situation of the pandemic and how it was used to further this agenda. But as for now, your 15 minutes are up. But the grumpy ramblings will continue, of course. So make sure that you tune in next week for another video. Also, I will have a special video coming in another couple days. Thank you for joining me today, and thanks for listening. If you like this video, make sure you click like and share the video and subscribe to the channel. Tune in next Sunday at noon for another video and the extra one that's coming this week. In the meantime, watch out for the shorts that I put up. Check out the merch store in the description down below. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good night. God bless. And Godspeed.